think it's all about the bass, about the bass, about the bass. No treble.
Sing that again.
No. That's what I love about Queen. I mean, it's just those four guys going at it. 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 Lead guitar, bass, and drum, and like little keyboard. You keep adding too much to it, you just muddy up the water. In my book, I like it simple. Little keyboard. Four guys going at it. Four guys going at it. Four guys going at it. I'm doing good point tonight. Four guys going at it. Four guys going at it. Four guys going at it. Four guys going at it.
You paid $2.
I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Love you, Big Al.
I love you too. I enjoy four guys going at
it. I don't see Big Al in the chat. It's such a shame he's not here for that. I dug up some old classics and hope you enjoyed that. But welcome back to the stream. I am Professor Geek. Oh, Big Al, you missed it. You missed it. You have to come back and watch this. But yeah, I got a couple others I'll work into the rotation as well, so it's not just bouncing back between those two. Oh man, hopefully you guys had a great week. Hopefully you are gearing up for a great Father's Day. That's the theme of tonight's stream. We'll talk about that with some reviews and whatnot. But let me welcome the chat here. Yeah, classics, definitely, Guyvart. Ghost Planet Max Inc., welcome to you first there. Private Eye in Retrospectiva. Eldritch Fan, appreciate the super chat there. I'll get to that in a second. Slente, I think, I don't know if I've seen you around before. I like this, though. You say, throughout this year, you've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and have really enjoyed it. Watched the last episode of Season 5 today. Thanks for recommending it. You are welcome. It's a freaking amazing show. Excuse me. I don't know why people sleep on this show. And they watched like the first 2 episodes and it wasn't a superhero show. So they just, got all these reasons why it's just not very good. Are you kidding me? The writing was freaking excellent in that show. But welcome to you. Stephen M., welcome. Leia Plus Size, great to see you. Crystal, I think I see Crystal Ashes. Nathaniel's Lowsball. Imaginative Hobbyist. And Elf Runner, Crystal Ashes, thanks for the gifted 5 Professor membership. Got a lot, only members only, including my archetype videos that I did back in the day. They're for members right now. So yeah, enjoy that. Those who were gifted that. Dr. Y Designs. And chat's skipping all over the place there. Of course, my dear sweet sound engraver, Guyvard, as I said. Welcome to many, many more. Great to see everybody here. Let me go into the super chats here. I appreciate Eldritch Fan. You say I don't have to read the super chat. I appreciate it. Yeah, get a little political, but you've got a reason for it. You say no kings, but rule by autopen. So that's convert authority as opposed to the overt authority that you were talking about. When you dump overt authority, you get covert authority. Yeah, believe it or not, I actually see. I was gonna let me get your other super chat before I go get into that. I can just get to the end of the current chat. So before you get started, what'd you think of the alien ship in Alien? Was exploring it like a Gothic castle? Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's a term for that. You have Gothic literature in Europe with like the big Gothic castles, and then you have American Gothic with like these old antebellum or even post antebellum, but colonial, aristocratic, kind of mansions and stuff like that. And Alien kind of put like the Gothic in space, so like the American Gothic, space Gothic. So I wonder if that's a term we can use, but yeah, it was great. Delve into the past, the alien mines. Oh, you mean the alien ship that they find? Oh, okay. I thought I was talking about just the salvage ship. But yeah, the alien ship that they find. I mean, we don't see, at least in the version I saw of Aliens, we don't see a lot of it, right? We do see it, and it's cool. But I don't know. I might have to. I only watched the movie once, so I might have to watch it again to really delve into some of that more. I understand that like Prometheus and some other ones and whatnot delve into the sort of the backstory of the aliens a bit more and whatever, or the xenomorphs and so forth. All right. Oh, my dear sound engraver, for $10 is Happy Father's Day to Professor Geek, a most terrific father, not mine, of course, for those who may not have a dad around. Remember the good men in your life, and Happy Father's Day to my dad. Yes, Happy Father's Day to all the dads. Thank you for that. The father figures, and I don't say that lightly because to be a father is a specific thing, and I don't just mean like, oh, if you kind of got somebody that looks up to you in your life, Happy Father's Day to you. No, that's not what I mean. But I mean father figures in the sense that there's a lot of people today that don't have fathers, or don't have fathers that are worth a crap, to be honest. And there are other people that step into that role, whether it's stepfathers or uncles or whatever, that actually step into the father role and protect and provide and whatnot. So Happy Father's Day to everybody in that father role. And you're right. We do have a one of the things that I'll talk about kind of in general tonight is just the real father wound that we have in the world, but certainly in our country right now, our Western culture in general, you can say. I don't know enough about like Japan and Eastern cultures to say that whether this is a thing or not, but we do have such a father wound for absent fathers. Culture has torn down the idea of real manhood and real fatherhood and doesn't want to care about it so much. So I'm going to talk about that in light of some of the reviews I have and some of the other things as well. I should have put Pee-wee down a shelf. He's kind of covered by the StreamYard link back there. Let's see what we can do there. Got to get Ernest was showcased last week. I get Pee-wee some props there. There we go. Okay. Got my bass in the picture this week too, because I've been practicing bass a lot. Been really this summer. I'm trying to get my bass chops back into shape to where in the fall I can maybe start trying to look for some gigs in a cover band or something like that, or just people to jam with. I love playing music again. It's a lot of fun. I'm getting pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. But anyway, I played for over 10 years in my teens and early 20s, and then I just kind of left off, kind of touch and go for a while. So that's been no kings, but rule by autopen, the covert authority versus overt authority, and so forth. I almost put on the thumbnail tonight a picture of George Washington because he's the father of our country, and then also I do this time of year. I just started this week. I've talked about it last year. I'm such a sort of armchair enthusiast of colonial and revolutionary era American history. Love that time period. That's just something I have a lot of fun with, just sort of amateur, fandom sort of historian. I'm not trained in, proper historian with it or anything, but love that era, especially growing up, in Virginia where so much of it happened and whatnot. I just love it so much. And, Washington, freeze a lot, and I don't know why. It's a pain in the butt. I just but I think audio's coming through anyway. But anyway, today's the 250th anniversary of the American Army, and Washington was the first to lead. It wasn't technically the American Army, in since that the United States government didn't exist at that point.
Freezing intermittently.
Yeah, I just said that. I said I'm freezing a bit, so I don't know. Is it that bad? Is it like? Let me restart the router again and see see what's going on. I'm gonna jump out here and then I'll continue or get back into George Washington. All right, so glitchy a little bit. I don't know. We'll see if it works. Don't know what could be the problem with it. We are having thunderstorms around in the area, and it's worked so well the last few weeks. So I don't know, but thanks for bearing with me. We'll see if it continues to be an issue or if it works or whatever. So we shall see. But where was I? Okay, I'm going to talk about Father's Day tonight. I'm going to talk about the father wound in our country and in our stories. We're going to talk about some reviews, and I was going to talk about. Good, but it seems fine. I was going to talk about George Washington a bit, and then I didn't because I thought it was too tenuously related. He's the father of our country, but he wasn't, I'm not going to talk about him fatherhood necessarily. But yeah, Eldritch Fans Super Chat talking about like the No Kings and whatnot does tie in a little bit because today is the 250th anniversary of the American Army. And as I was saying, George Washington led what was technically the precursor to the American Army because the United States government didn't exist. We had the Continental Congress. And it was the first time, an army of the colonies, was standing up to Britain. And George Washington was such an amazing, really father figure for our country because he set, they're calling the protests today No Kings. And George Washington was a huge part of actually setting the precedent that we're a country without a king. Everyone across the world just assumed that George Washington would take power once, the Revolutionary War was fought and Britain stood down and whatnot. Everyone assumed that George Washington would take over and be what amounted to the King of America, whether they called it an emperor or whatever. Even when the Constitution was ratified and he became the first president, everyone just assumed like it was no problem at all, because this was just what was done. Anytime there's a revolution, the head of that revolution becomes the next, whether it's dictator or whatever, just becomes the next head of the state, and that regime sticks there forever, until he dies or whatever. And George Washington was absolutely, truly revolutionary in resigning his commission after the war was done. Britain signed the Treaty of Paris. Everything was done. There was no more need for the Revolutionary War anymore, and Congress dissolved the Continental Army. George Washington resigned his commission. Everyone was shocked at that. Then, when he's overwhelmingly elected as our first president, everybody was shocked that he stepped down after 2 terms. I mean, you could not believe this, and he set this precedent that no, we don't have a king. This is not a monarchy. We're a democratic republic. We're a constitutional republic, democratic republic. And that's a legitimate gripe to have at any point in American history. You can go out and protest or talk about the executive branch, the presidential branch of government having too much power. That's a legitimate thing to talk about. It's a legitimate thing to protest if you want. There's always been that built-in tension in our history, in our Constitution itself. When the Constitution was being ratified, going from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution, there was a big tension. People didn't like that. It was the tension between states' rights and federal rights and our federal power and whatnot. So that's always been a thing. And that's why it pisses me off so much that the protests going on today are trying to label themselves as no king protests, because that's not what anybody's protesting today. It's a legitimate thing to protest. You can go protest, hey, that the executive branch is having too much power. Not a single person out there protesting today actually thinks that. They're mad that Donald Trump has too much power. They're not mad that the executive branch is doing or able to do too many things. They're mad at the things that President Donald Trump is doing. And if that wasn't the case, then where the hell were you during the 8+ years of straight glorified hero worship of Barack Obama? And they'll say, well, no, I was uncomfortable with that too. BS. I lived through that era too. I knew what a damn fool America made of itself. You're not going to tell me that you're just mad. You're mad that the executive power branch has too much power in general. No. So it's very insulting, I think, to the legitimate discussion that can be had about the executive branch having too much power. It's just insulting to that, that people protesting Donald Trump, which is also a legitimate thing to protest if that's what you want to protest. We have rights to protest things we don't like. We have rights to protest administrations we don't like. Be honest about it. This whole no kings garbage is marketing. It's not ground roots protest. It's marketing. It's the powers that be, the covert authority. It's people trying to pull the strings of the public like little puppets. And it annoys me. But anyway, so that's it. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But I wasn't going to mention that, but then your super chat made me link it to George Washington, the father of our country. So I did that. Moving on. I think you have another super chat, maybe about something else, but let me just make sure I don't miss anything, because I had to take a little break there to get the Wi-Fi set up. I guess I just always need to reset the router every time right before the stream. I'm learning, guys. I'm learning. I actually taught a workshop at one of the universities that I tutor at this morning, and so I just reset the router for that. And I thought, well, I'll need to reset the router like multiple times a day or anything, Apparently I do. This rural area that we live in and with our internet connection. So thanks for bearing with me. Appreciate that. Eldridge Fan said it's a travesty that they did to Jor-El and Thomas Wayne in recent shows. They'll either ruin Alfred or gender swap him next. You're absolutely right. Our culture does not like father figures well, on the one hand, our culture doesn't like father figures in our country, or in our, excuse me, I'm trying to get the thing there, do too many things at once. On the one hand, our culture doesn't like father figures in our stories. And I think that's in the, we're seeing that with the what we used to call SGWs, or you want to call them the woke, or whatever. Ideologues is probably the best word to use. That's their influence on our stories. And we've seen it, right? They've deconstructed, even Man-at-Arms and the garbage Kevin Smith, He-Man crap that they did. They want to deconstruct every father figure out there because they're uncomfortable with the idea of a father figure. They're uncomfortable with even admitting that children need a good, strong, masculine father figure. Oh, that's toxic. And what has it done? It's bitten them in the butt. Now they're just like, oh crap, well, men aren't voting for us anymore. Why won't they come along and let us tell them how horrible they are? On the one hand, there's that. On the other hand, though, I think this is why movies that even remotely explore a good father figure or just pay sort of service to the idea that fatherhood's important do so freaking well. This is why one of the reasons why I think Godzilla -1 did so well. Even though I wasn't crazy about it. I did that in my review. Everybody that was saying how much they liked it, one of the biggest things they were saying about it was the portrayals of masculinity or the need for fatherhood and whatnot. So it's there. I mean, what was a story I was going to talk about? Oh yeah, it'll come up organically here in a moment. So yeah, maybe we'll get into the reviews, and this will help us talk about some of the specifics as we go through. And if I've missed anybody's super chat, please let me know. I do see Dr. Wise coming in here, though, hit right now, but let me know if I missed anybody's while I was trying to figure out the connection there, and we'll get with our reviews here as well. Dr. Y Designs, thank you so much for the 10. You said $10. Sorry. Freaking can't stand. I know a Young Rippa does this. I've heard him on clips. You go, Dr. Y with a 10. And they don't read it. I hate that. Not anything against Young Rippa as a person, but I hate people who speak the English language without pronouncing the full word. So it's not wit, it's with. And it's not a 10, it's $10. Anyway, my own pet peeve. One of my favorite movie lines about the father comes from the OG Magnificent Seven. I was going to talk about this too. I'm so glad you brought it up. The Charles Bronson speech. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. This is such an amazing, it's such an amazing speech. I should have found it a link so I could have read it word for word, but I'll give you the gist of it. So Magnificent Seven, you've got this village, and they're a village of farmers, and they're powerless to fight against these bandits who are, taking their crops and whatnot. So they go out and find a bunch of gunslingers and, kind of bandits in their own right, to a certain degree, willing to help them. I've talked a little bit about it before, coming from Seven Samurai, and the Magnificent Seven did it so well. And Charles Bronson's character, he's part Mexican. So the Mexican village kind of, the children take to him. He's like part Irish and part Mexican. His character is anyway. And the children take to him. And at one point, the farmers are tired of fighting. They're scared. And they want to go ahead and let the bandits in and just sort of ask for forgiveness so they don't have to keep fighting and, maybe people dying and so forth. And the children come to Charles Bronson's character and say, I saw a freeze again, so let me know if that keeps happening. But they said, we want to go with you because our fathers are cowards. And Charles Bronson, I think he grabs the kid that says it and spanks him right then and there. And he says, your parents are not cowards. He says, your fathers have made a choice every single day to live with the weight on their shoulders of worrying about you, worrying about your life, wanting to protect you and provide for you every single moment of their life. They choose to stay here in their home with you and your mother. They choose every day to get up and do grueling labor. They have made this choice. He said, that's a choice I couldn't make. He says, because he's a gunslinger. He's out there in the West. He said, I could never do that. They are the brave ones. He said, I'm the coward. I could never, take on that responsibility. And he said it way more eloquently than I'm saying, but it's so absolutely true. That's what real fatherhood is. It's having the courage to take on the enormous weight of responsibility. And you don't do it because you're a martyr. That would be a horrible father, or someone that brings it all. You don't appreciate all the things I do, blah, blah, blah. That's horrible. They do it for love, for self-sacrificial love. They do it because that's the perfection of the masculine genius, to give love and to serve. And when you pair that with the perfect masculine or feminine genius, the woman there to receive that love, nurture, give it back, that's the perfect home. This is why children so desperately need a father and a mother figure. Desperately. It's basic human psychology is built into who we are. And yeah, I think you've got some of the quote there. Maybe you gave me a link to it. Yeah, people can take a look at that link if they want to. But you say, you think I'm brave because I carry a gun. Well, your fathers are much braver because they carry responsibility for you, your brothers, your sisters, and your mothers. And you might be typing out more. But yeah, no, it's a great quote, and it's a great point. So we see a lot of that, anytime there's and I mean, we need mothers too, and good mother stories are important and whatnot. But you almost really can't tell a story about the need for motherhood without it reflecting on the need for fatherhood, and vice versa to some degree. And that kind of is a good segue to the the movies. I talked about, or I hinted at the other day, that I'd watched the first two Terminator movies. Now, I had seen these back in the day. I just rewatched them recently. The first Terminator I had watched over and over as a child in the 80s. But I realized when I was watching this Blu-ray I had, I realized that and you don't think about this when you're a child growing up in the 80s. You just, you do what you've got. And what I was watching was a videotaped recording we had done of the television broadcast of the Terminator. Obviously heavily edited for television, right? And so I was watching the Terminator and I'm like, I don't remember Linda Hamilton's boobs being in this movie, or I don't remember, this scene or that, and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's because I was watching the TV edit over and over growing up. And it was really cool to watch the, for the first time, the full uncut film, So that was great. And Terminator 2 is a funny story. This came out when I was like 11 or 12, 11, I think. No, maybe 12. I don't know. One record out there. I was born in 79, so 11 and 12 or whatever. I saw this once in the theaters and liked it, enjoyed it quite a bit. I never really saw it again and didn't think too much or talk much about it again because of sheer adolescent jealousy. One, I was jealous of, oh shoot, what's his name? I just talked about him in Brain Scan, the actor's name. I can't Edward, whatever his name is. I keep wanting to say Norton. It's obviously not Edward Norton. The kid. Anyway, Furlong. One, I was jealous of him because every girl in my school just thought he was the hottest thing ever. So I was like, stupid Edward Furlong, And then I was jealous of Danny Cooksey, who is in the movie as well as his friend, John Connor's friend for a time there. And Danny Cooksey is the guy with the red hair, the sort of the red hair mullet or whatever in the movie. You guys might remember him as the actor from Salute Your Shorts on Nickelodeon back in the day. I think he was on Growing Pains before that or whatever as a young child. What I knew him from, though, I knew him from Salute Your Shorts and all that too. But he was in a band about the same time that this was going on, maybe shortly after Terminator 2 or shortly before it or something like that. He was in a band called Bad for Good. It was the letter or the number 4. So Bad, number 4, Good. And he was like a little bit older than me, a year or two older than me. And he was in this hard rock band that was really freaking good. And it was other kids, our age. I was so jealous of that because I wanted to be in a band, I wanted to be a rock star and stuff like that. And they didn't really last beyond one album, I don't think. Steve Vai, the legendary Steve Vai, great guitarist, was the one that kind of discovered the guitarist, I think, and what a prodigy of a guitarist he was, and put the band together. And they're all still doing stuff today. I think the bassist and drummer sort of switched instruments at some point and are doing more sort of, I don't know, something else. But the guitarist is doing some amazing stuff right now with an electronic musician, a programmer, but he's still playing the guitar. It's great. And of course, Danny Cooksey, I don't know if he's still acting. He does the con circuit. I've seen him do some like country-ish music, which obviously I'm not too much into. But anyway, I liked so I was jealous. So I didn't watch or talk about T too much at that point. But I'll get to that in a second, but I want to get to the super chat. Make sure I'm not missing you here. Alec Purdue dropping another large super chat this week. Sir, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. You say I'm extremely late. This is a cover for another review, hopefully. I will note you about it. I can't stick around tonight, unfortunately. Hope the stream goes well. Well, thank you so much for that super chat and popping in. I think you'll really like what we have to say tonight because we're talking about the father figures and father figure stories. And I know from the things that you told me in messages and whatnot that you really are drawn to stories like this. So I think you'll appreciate it. And thank you so much for that super chat. Much, much appreciated. So the Terminator movies, every time you hear about the Terminator movies, mainly what you hear people talk about is Sarah Connor, the mother, right? I mean, and this is an important part of the story. In the first movie, the Terminator is sent back to kill Sarah Connor because she will give birth to John Connor, and she will be the mother that teaches him all these skills, leadership skills, survival skills, and whatnot, and how important she is to him, and obviously for him being born, but also for shaping him into the type of man he's going to be. And then, of course, everyone talks about her in T2 because in T2 she becomes the badass survivalist, able to do all these skills and whatnot. And that's important. I mean, she deserves her role as that. But I think people woefully they leave it unexplored, or they don't mention it enough. But the Terminator 1 and 2 movies they have such an important message about the importance of fatherhood, because you think in Terminator 1, Sarah Connor isn't anything at that point. She's not. I mean, she's a badass by part 2, of course, obviously, but she's just a waitress. She doesn't have any skills. She's just a good person, but she never thought about being a mother. She even laments, to Kyle when he's telling her that she's going to be all these things. She's like, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that at all. She's terrified. She's at the, she's totally dependent on Kyle to protect her. And the importance of the father being Kyle is kind of a twisted story, but in a way, sort of an interesting take on it, because John had to get to know his father before he was his father in the future, and then send him back to the past to sleep with his mother and be his father, but then he's going to die in the past. And it's interesting because the father is inspired by the son, who's inspired by the mother, who was inspired by the father. It's this neat little circle, but it emphasizes the importance, like the not symbiotic, but the dependency that each relationship has upon the other to function correctly. And we see, Kyle's not a father in the sense that he's got, the baby John is born and he's right there for him and everything, but he exhibits that importance of fatherhood in loving and honoring the mother and protecting at all costs. Even when he's in the future and we see his flashbacks of memory when he was still in the future, protecting, fighting for the human race and whatnot. And that's a really important theme that's really developed by the time we get to Terminator 2, because in Terminator 2, you've got the T whatever 300, 2000 or whatever, it's a number, so I'm not going to remember it, but whatever model number Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is, you've got that one sent back, but reprogrammed to protect John Connor at all costs. And in T2, Sarah Connor's not a great mother. Part of her journey in the movie is learning that she has to be a good mother. She can't just keep putting the weight of this, the future on John. And, she needs to teach him all these things, but she also has to be an emotionally present mother for him. That's part of her journey. But one of the reflections that she has during the film is she's watching John teach the Terminator how to give a high five or a fist bump or something down low and all this kind of stuff. And she realizes that she talks about all these men that she's been with in the past who've never actually stuck around and been there for John. And she said, this robot is really the perfect father for him because it's utterly devoted. It's going to protect him at all costs, body and sustenance wise. It's going to provide for him. It's going to do everything it can for him. And it's a story about John Connor really finding a present father figure for the first time, which is why the only thing I don't like about T2 is that spoiler, but the T2, has to go in the end. He says, you got to take me out because I have one of those processors too that we don't want people developing. I think that was a wrong move to make. I get it, but I think it was the wrong move to make because the movie set up the importance of John having this father figure. And even though the T, what'd you say, T500, 800 or whatever? It's a number. I just saw it in the chat and I can't remember it again. T500 or 800, I don't know, whatever. But anyway, even though he's sacrificing himself for John, he's still abandoning him again. It's like another father figure come and gone. So I didn't like that at the end. But it just struck me that these movies that are always harped on and talked about, is the strong mother figure and all this kind of stuff. Sarah Connor is more the phallic woman than she is a heroine archetype. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, because the phallic woman's a legitimate and an important archetype as well. And yes, her journey is learning to become a better mother. But I think the importance of father figures are a big part of those movies. All right. See if I didn't miss anything here. Not too much chatting about the Terminator. I guess, I mean, they're old movies, but I thought that they were a big deal. Big Al did finally pop up. Father figures. Don't forget your godfather. You're not my godfather, punk. Al, you got to go all the way to the beginning and watch the opening video that I started with. Everyone appreciated that. Al always tries to pretend he's you're not my godfather. When you go into the Catholic Church, if a baby is baptized or a child is baptized into the Catholic Church, part of the ceremony is to have a godfather or godmother, or preferably both. And that's somebody who is going to support the parents and kind of be there to help support the child growing up in the faith. That's the idea. Now, if you are an adult coming into the Catholic Church, you don't get a godfather. You get something called a sponsor, which is somebody who, basically is just saying, yeah, I'll be the one to answer this person's questions as they come into the faith or so forth and whatnot. Well, Al is a, lifelong Catholic. So I was a convert. So I just let Al be my sponsor. And he's like, so I'm basically your godfather. You're no godfather. he likes to keep throwing that up. I'm seeing like 5 different numbers answering my questions about the T blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. Maybe there are different models as they came about. Who knows? Guybart says T2 also had the most epic action sequences. Yeah, it did. That's some great action sequences I've ever seen. Definitely beats most Marvel movies that's been coming out lately. I don't watch Marvel movies lately, but I'll take your word for it. Definitely. Electra Barbarella says I watched Terminator. I watched it with my dad. Made the story of both Kyle and the T-800 resonate with me. Awesome. Yeah. Big Al, a rose by any other name is still your godfather. Keep going here and see. Anything else on Terminator? I don't believe so. Well, here we go. Imaginative Hobbyist said, Terminator 3 through 6, which of them do you think is the best follow-up to T2? Salvation, I think conceptually was most interesting. The original would have been crazy. To be honest with you, I never watched any of Terminator 2. T3 came out, and it didn't have Edward Furlong anymore, which I get. He had some issues. The actor did stuff in that day and whatnot. But it also got kind of poor reviews, and I don't know. I just didn't get around to it. And then the things I was hearing about it, I didn't bother. I might still watch that one day just because Kristanna Loken is such a cool stunt performer and whatnot. I don't know. The one thing I do want to, and I honestly, anything after that, I seriously just don't care about. I've heard the reviews and the ways those movies are set up. Obviously, anything they made recently, I'm going to skip. Even the ones where Linda Hamilton and Schwarzenegger come back, not worth it even in the slightest to me. The only thing that I really would like to watch, though, and I don't know if it's any good or not, but I know the concept sounds interesting, is the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I think had 2 seasons. It had, I'm blanking on her name, the actress who played River Tam in Firefly. I know her name, but I'm just blanking on it right now. But anyway, she was like the Terminator model or whatever sent back to protect him. But that one only builds on Terminator 1 and 2. It ignores T3 and everything from what I understand. So I haven't watched that yet, but I would like to watch those and probably do that at some point here before too long. So yeah. Godfather. Chris Lashes says Al Corleone is going to make the prophet offer he can't refuse. Summer Glau, yeah, thank you. That's the actress's name. Yeah. Yeah, Dark Fate, all the stupid things they did. Do any of you know if the Terminator comics are any good? Because I know that there were some comics at one time or another. I don't even really know enough about it to know what continuity they took off from and whatnot, or if they were decent. But I got a lot of advertisements recently because a lot of old great comics from the 80s or 90s, from certain franchises are getting rebound in new omnibuses, and they're doing like crowdfunding or something like that. I backed a really cool edition of Thundercats that they're still working on getting together, all the old classic comics, but they did one for Terminator, which I'd never known much about the Terminator comics. So if anybody knows if they're good or not, I'd be interested to know. That's good to know. The Electra Barbarella says that the Sarah Connor show was fantastic. Good. The Sarah Connor Chronicles. I'm looking forward to watching that then. Definitely. Oha says Terminator Resistance was set during the Future War. I think made by the same people who made the new RoboCop game. Interesting. Interesting. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I need to look into more of it. But yeah, film wise, I think. I mean, I'm really going to only follow the continuity of the first two there. Cash grabs, yeah, no doubt. Danny Elfman did music for one of the Terminator films. Seriously, Ghost Planet. I love the music for the first two. The electric, music. I can't remember. I know the guy's name, the composer, but he did all of that, electronic music for those movies back then. He was just, man, he was great. Yeah, so I really like that. And that theme for the first Terminator is so haunting and so powerful. It's dramatic, but it's great. I just really like that a lot. I thought it was great. So yeah. Let me get to my other review and then we can let's see if anything else that comes up or whatever, as long as I go through here. But I finally read Cyberfrog Dark Harvest that came out recently. And this it's kind of confusing. I don't really have a good handle analytically yet on the whole structure of the Cyberfrog epic story, once it finally comes out and all the parts are out, because it's, on the one hand, it's a 4-parter, right? You've got, what was the first one called? I've got them here. So you got Blood Honey, which was the first one. Then Wrecked Planet was the second one. And Red Extermination, I think, is coming out next. And then there's a 4th part. But in addition to all of that, you've got a lot of this material that comes in between the stories, or flesh it out, or prequels. I mean, there's Salamandroid Death Sting, Unforgettable Tales 1 and 2. I think this was just more kind of material like old stories or whatever. So there's a lot of that because it was a comic run back in the day, obviously, before he's doing what he did now with it. Amphibionics, I've got some of those as well. But you got Death Sting, you've got I got deleted scenes, you've got the Cyberfrog Heartsick Terror, or Heartsick Horror, excuse me. And so there's a lot of, I think there's a Death Sting 2 as well that I don't have. I don't know if that's coming out. Did I miss that, or is that coming out with Red Extermination? I forget. So it's easy to kind of lose track of a lot of these. And when Dark Harvest came out, I was telling the Sound Engraver, I was like, well, I feel like ideally I'd love to reread everything again from Blood Honey on. But that was just too much. I didn't have time for that right now. And I wanted to talk about Dark Harvest while it was still out, and still a thing. So I did reread Wrecked Planet. Should have reread Heartsick Horror too, but there's no Death Sting number 2 yet. Sound Engraver says, okay, yeah, that's coming out though. I think it was part of one of the add-ons or whatever that I got with Red Extermination, if I'm not mistaken. But it seems like somewhere I saw a part 2 of that. I don't know. Anyway, I'll need to wait until the whole story is completed before I can really speak on the structure of it. But there's a lot to the story. There's a lot to the world. And I read Dark Harvest. I had to reread Wrecked Planet for it. So all that to say, I don't know if I'm going to give the most comprehensive analysis of it tonight. I just want to talk about some of the story and what the story meant to me and whatnot. And I might spoil a little bit here if you're someone who's, hasn't read it yet, you want to or whatever. I'm not going to go through blow by blow on the whole story, but basically, Dark Harvest mostly tells what's been going on with Lily. Because if you notice, or if you remember at the end of Wrecked Planet, once they just totally demolish poor Trick Ron, poor Cyberfrog, the Vespas take off with Lily. So what's been going on with her? We know that what's her name? Dystopia had been messing with Lily's mind, at the behest of the leader of their community and whatnot. We find out in this story that Dystopia is also working with Scorpion, which is a big deal because Scorpion's got some plans of his own. He gave Trickron the ability to speak the Vespa's language, but this art is just so freaking amazing. I mean, I'm no artist, but one of the things I love about the art is just it's a work of art in every panel. It really is. And I so appreciate that, not as somebody who's, an expert on art or an expert on the, terminology and all of that, but as somebody who reads a lot of comics and understands the materiality of comic book storytelling and what it should be. It truly should be the art and the text telling the story together. And I just reread, for example, the 3 large omnibuses of Knights of the Old Republic comics that I talked about previously, John Jackson Miller. And he worked with a different variety of artists, and some of them were great. He started out working with some great artists, but then he got into working with artists who were just really minimalistic, or sort of almost like abstract expressionism when they're trying to show these characters. And it just got ugly. It got some of the characters truly were just vile to look at. And these are characters who weren't supposed to look that way, you know? So I do appreciate how the art is just truly a masterpiece. I could take any of these panels and frame it, you know? I mean, it really is so detailed. And I love that because it enhances the importance of the art and the text telling the story. I think that's important. So you get more of Lily's story here and what's happening with her as the Vespas are taking her away. You do get a little bit more in part 2 of what's been going on with Cyberfrog, and I'll talk about that in a second. We don't really get too much. We don't go too far into Cyberfrog's narrative from where we left him at the end of Wrecked Planet. But you deal with Lily and her psychology, what dystopia has been doing to her, and where the Vespas are taking her off to a little bit. It's a very, you know, just a very short little bit of connective tissue between part 2 and part 3. And what I love about it is that it does enhance the father theme here, the missing father theme. One of the first things that stuck out to me with Cyberfrog was how it was basically the setup of Superman. I talked about this in my review of Bloodhoney back in the day. It's the setup of Superman, Jor-El, the Heavenly Father, sending forth his son to help mankind. This was sort of reverse on that because Jel-Shen is the Heavenly Mother, you know, come to Earth and submerging into the swamp, sort of the primal ooze, you know, to help our mankind's future. And her son, birthed as Trickron, is Cyberfrog, here to serve mankind. So I love that aspect of it. But then there's also, like I said, anytime you tell a story that emphasizes the importance of motherhood, you can't help but to emphasize the need or the importance of fatherhood as well. And we see that in Heather Swain. I mean, Heather Swain is her father, I think, if I remember correctly, left to the Gulf War, and she's had all these horrible people that her mother brought into her life, you know, horrible father figures, abused her and whatnot. There's the Heartsick Horror story, you know, about the fear and the pain and the hopelessness, and she's dealing with, I mean, well, I'll get to that in a second. So fatherhood's a big deal. Now, when she, in the future here, or in the present, you know, the future of the story there, has Lily's own father goes off and leaves her. And we don't really know exactly, I think we'll get more of the story, exactly what was going on there. He left, you know, as part of the survival team to go find, you know, resources or whatever, but never came back. So you got this little girl, Lily, abandoned by her father, for all intents and purposes, whatever his intentions were, whatever actually happened to him to keep him away or not, whatever, abandoned by her father, much the same way Heather Swain felt abandoned by her own. And there's that missing fatherhood, a father place in there. And that's what Trickron is so important. That's why Cyberfrog's so important. I'll talk about that here in a second. But we do get that that part of the story, which I think is really great. I can't. I saw the screen freeze there for a second. I can't deny being a little ticked off just at this, okay? Just because for over a couple of years now, I've been having to sit with poor Cyberfrog, his place in the story, having his tongue cut out, a freaking stinger shoved through his skull, Vespa's venom running all through his body. I mean, at the end of Wrecked Planet, you get the gut-wrenching, emotional, horrific Pieta scene. I mean, it's almost over for Trickron. This is his symbolic death and rebirth, you know, in terms of the hero's journey. Even though he kind of already had that, you know, with going into the future, you know, as his hibernating or whatever, or regenerating in the water. But, you know, in terms of the story and the journeys he's on now, this is the end of that act. You know, this is sort of the symbolic death, and we're hoping, you know, we're looking for some sort of rebirth, metaphorical rebirth. I mean, you know, and that was hard to watch. That was hard to read. It was hard to go through. And I'm like, man, I was hoping Red or Dark Harvest would give me just a little bit more. Like, let me know he's going to be okay. And it does, in the sense that, again, spoiling things, but we know that Salamandroid pops in, and we know that Jel Shen is still alive. I think that's in some of the teasing pages for Dark Harvest, or for Red Extermination. I don't know. But anyway, so we know that hope is it's coming there, but I'm just like, man, I really need the rest of the story, man. I really need it. And I'm not saying that at all to play into the whole you should get his books out faster. I don't buy into that. I understand the freaking masterpiece that the artwork is, and I can't begin to fathom how long that would take. So I'm not jumping on that bandwagon or anything. I guess all I'm doing is saying it just to emphasize how much I truly have come to really care about this character. And this is probably the biggest compliment I can say to any writer for their character, for their work. If I stumbled across Cyberfrog stories, if I didn't have a clue who Ethan Van Sciver was, if I didn't know about YouTube or anything like that, I just stumbled across these stories, I would become incredibly invested still in the character of Cyberfrog. He's a character that's come to mean a lot to me over the past few years. He's an aspirational trickster, which we don't have enough of. His character, it's kind of like a Superman or a He-Man or somebody like that really just makes the decision to stand and fight and to protect. And that's what true masculinity and true fatherhood's all about. And in the story, of course, Trick Ron, I was talking a little bit about Lily. He's a hero, right? He's a warrior. He, in the sense that he's built to go fight and protect. That's how he protects people, by fighting these Vespas. And he decides to stay in this little community with Heather Swain so that he can protect her daughter, especially when Heather Swain has to go off and do her little kind of pillaging and finding, food or whatever mission. He's going to stay, and he talks about in some of the stories to just try and put a smile on this little girl's face, who hasn't smiled in so long. And she even doesn't like him at first, but he wins her over, and he becomes this father figure to her. And that's a choice. Like we talked about the great quote from Magnificent Seven at the beginning of the stream. That's a choice that fathers make. It's a sacrifice. It's a weight of responsibility that they willingly and joyfully choose to carry, because they care for other people and want to protect and give and serve other people. And that's what you see Cyberfrog. That's what you see in his character. And that means so much to me. I also love the character because of what he's done for Heather Swain. I think this is really a metaphor for what heroes do for us in general. In the story, if you read them, you know that when he meets Heather Swain, and they reflect on this a little bit in Dark Harvest as well, she was ready to give up, right? She was jumping. She was trying to commit suicide. And he sees her jump, and he saves her. And he gives her hope again. He gives her joy again. And it's not obviously it's not a romantic thing or anything like that. He's a hero that helps her see that life can still be worth living, helps her see that life is, and there are things in life still worth fighting for. That's what real heroes do for us. That's an image or a metaphor for what heroes do for us in the real world all the time. Now, I don't know. I'm sure there are cases out there of people, maybe getting to the point of being suicidal or something like that. I've never been to that place, but I've been to the place many times in my life where you just kind of give up. You can just sort of give up in life, or want to give up in life without actually wanting to end your life. People do that all the time. People, we see people walking around like zombies in life all the time, just joyless or whatever. And that can be because things go on. It can be because you're just worn down or whatever. And anytime I've gotten to sort of a place like that in life, it's always been heroes or stories that help me see, because heroes are, these archetypes stand in for, real life things, and they stand in Superman, He-Man, Luke Skywalker. These characters show you that there's always a good out there, and it's always worth fighting for, even if it's hard. It's never questioned. It's never like, was it even worth fighting for? I don't even know. No, these aspirational heroes tell you always get up and always move forward. And they're the inspiration for the cathartic motivational heroes that we also love. But Cyberfrog is absolutely one of those characters. And I just love his character so much. And I can't really need to read Extermination because my psychology needs it. I can't leave him in this place anymore that he is, even though it's a great development in his story arc. I see the whole place even in the hero's journey of him. But I want to see this character come back and do what he does and shine forth that hope and kick some Vespa's butt as well. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just read it this week, and so much has been going on this week that I can't really give you an in-depth analysis of Dark Harvest, but it's really great connective tissue. I think it's an important connective tissue. By the time we do get to read Red Extermination, you'll want to know some of the things that happened in here. But I don't know. On this Father's Day stream, I just wanted to talk about that. Cyberfrog has definitely become one of those heroes that's in my own little pantheon now of heroes like the other ones I mentioned, He-Man, Superman, and so forth, of aspirational heroes. And we don't have enough aspirational tricksters, Off the top of my head, Naruto is the only other one I could think of, because tricksters tend to be more cathartic motivational. But aspirational tricksters are great, and they're great, and it's good to have one here. So anyway, that's the other review I want to give. I think I got some super chats here to catch before they get lost in the ether. Let me check in here. Make sure I don't miss any of those. First one coming up is Eldritch Fan said, Alien Queen, strong single mom. We don't need a man. That's right. She's kind of like the anti mom or mother figure, in the way it's usually set up. Michael Scimbadi, thanks for 19, said, Prof, your thoughts on this? Thoughts on what, Scimbadi? I think you're talking a lot about Batman Begins some places in the chat, but I don't know. I'm not really talking about Batman Begins tonight, but I don't know where you wrote about that either. So, but I do appreciate you being here. Appreciate your channel membership. Sound Engraver, thank you for the $2. It's EVS's art signature is its own cinematography. Yeah, it's just kind of that's the comic book art is the equivalent to cinematography for a film, definitely. Nathaniel Loseball says, not to complain, but isn't it kind of frustrating that 3 years have passed since the initial Cyberfrog 3 campaign and it still isn't out? Well, again, I can't begin to know what goes in to creating art of this level. And to be honest, I like the fact that All Caps Comics isn't just Cyberfrog. I like the fact that it's got a bunch of other titles, and I haven't really gotten any of the other titles. I got the sort of preview copy of Fearsome. That looked interesting. Rainbow Brute would probably be really funny, but I don't really have the money to sing into that. Elephant doesn't seem like it's my thing personally, taste-wise, but so I would read more Fearsome if I could, but I like the fact that it's a bigger thing, and that takes time and energy and all of that. So I'm not really jumping into that conversation one way or the other. I don't know enough about that. I'm perfectly willing to wait for quality of this level, but as somebody who I need Cyberfrog right now. I need Cyberfrog's heroism. I don't mean right now, like I'm not going through some stuff. I just mean, that we need Cyberfrog. The world needs him. Readers who love the character need him. So I'm looking forward to more of him. Definitely. Let's see. Is that the one I missed there? I think that was it. Yeah. Okay. JDA's parody Robotoad? No, I didn't even know that was a thing. Was it a friendly parody or a sparring parody? Because to be honest, I can never keep up with whether JDA and EVS are on good terms or not. It seems like it's flip-flopped a few different times, and I'm like, what's the status of that now? I don't know. I don't get a chance to watch a lot of live streams on my own. I watch when I do have a moment, I watch videos, more sort of educational videos, or nostalgic videos. I love those, but I don't get a chance to watch some of the more lengthy live streams because I don't really have the time usually. But so yeah, I don't know the whole the status of things. But now this is a little bit of Leia plus size. Saying it may be out there, but Bill Compton from True Blood and how he was a father to Jessica in the first 2 seasons. How Jessica grew to love him as a father. I watched some of that episode, some of that series here and there because I like vampires. Quickly became evident to me that it wasn't my kind of vampire series necessarily. Nothing against it, but yeah, that was the girl from I know the actress's name, the girl from Daredevil too, like before Daredevil though. And yeah, I know the gist of that he was forced, I think, to turn her or something, so became sort of a father figure for her or something. I don't really know that. But so I don't really have a I watched some other things. Trying to think. I only have another review set to go. I will for next week. I did receive Doug Brody's a copy. He was like an author copy he graciously sent me of Murder Mind, Shelley Murder Mind, and I just started that, and I'm like, dang, this is going to be one of those I can't put down. So it's at the very least, I should have a review of that in 2 weeks. With my work schedule and schedule with my daughter or whatnot, it might be 2 weeks. I'd love for it to be next week, but that's a fun read. So so that'll be coming soon. I watched The Patriot recently because, like I said, I like watching this time of year up until July 4th. I like watching films or documentaries set in colonial times or revolutionary times. I just love that period. I'm kind of fascinated with it. And this time of year is fun to really get into it, moving up to 4th of July, especially in Virginia or any of the states that were one of the original colonies. You know, you're going to have battlefields and historic areas and sites around that touch on that area or that period. And The Patriot was great. I'd never seen it back in the day. I don't know why. It was 2000. I think I kind of conflated it in my mind a little bit with The Postman. But what I love about The Patriot, and this is directed by the same guy who did Independence Day and all of that, is that it's a mythologized telling of some very real actors in the Revolutionary War. Colonel Tavington, what's the actor's name? The guy who plays Draco Malfoy's father plays Colonel Tavington, who this brutal colonel who doesn't really follow any sort of etiquette on the field. He's torturing people. He's murdering people left and right, even if they're surrendering, even if they're helpless. He's murdering their families if the soldiers fought. Well, he's based on a very real character that, you know, historians will know, or anybody who's into historical history, Bannister Tarleton, who was in the South Theater of the war and who was horrible like that. He did the most horrible deeds upon people. It was almost as bad as, or just as bad as the Hessians, you know, in the more northern theater had been at the time. And he was feared and loathed by everybody. So a very real character. And Cornwallis in the South, you know, working with Bannister Tarleton, they had to face up against General Nathaniel Greene and Daniel Morgan, Colonel Daniel Morgan, who Mel Gibson's character is kind of based on. And Daniel Morgan was a militiaman, you know, or he knew he had militia there, and he knew how to fight in the fields and in the forests. And he wasn't this gentleman upon, you know, standing the line, you know, on the field or whatever. He fought the war the way it, you know, needed to be fought in the South, and was just a constant pain in the butt to Cornwallis, and really kept it going down here so well that by the time Washington worked his way down here, you know, Yorktown was able to happen. So it was a big deal. And so, yeah, it's a great mythologized fictional storytelling of some very real events that happen in real individuals that, you know, so maybe some other Daniel Morgan and maybe a couple other figures, you know, kind of went into his character as well. But I love that aspect of it. So it's a great story if you're into that era and you like that. Also great actors, amazing actors. I can't remember his name, but you talking about Batman Begins all the time there, Michael Scombati, the guy who played Falcone, I think, in Begins. He played Ben Franklin in the John Adams series from HBO, but he plays General Cornwallis in The Patriot. And he was great as that as well. He's such a great actor. So yeah, really good stuff. So yeah, I'll be watching some more of that stuff. Not just that. I might do either next weekend or the week after that. I might put out my Gadsden flag and just talk about some really cool movies or stories from that era, because they do cover the historic or the heroic archetypes, especially the war hero archetype, you know, a lot in that era of stories or films. But I'm still doing some other stuff too. I'm still watching some sci-fi. When I do watch Sarah Connor Chronicles, I definitely will talk about that, and we'll still get some other reviews and whatnot of some books, comics, movies as well. So that's coming. That's probably just about all I got in me for tonight. I've been talking for a while, and I can just see my meters in the red there. So, but it's been great hanging out with everybody. Appreciate it. Let me know if I missed anybody. That's a good call, Nathaniel Loseball. Vash the Stampede is absolutely an aspirational trickster. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, great character too. Great character. All right. Yeah, so great hanging out with everybody. I'll cut out some of these and make them their own streams. Got a great super chat here at the end from Dr. Wise. Said, growing up, My family had Disney's Swamp Fox recorded on VHS. Swamp Fox. Have you ever seen Swamp Fox? Leslie Nielsen played the title character. The theme song is super catchy. I don't think I know what that is, believe it or not. I grew up with a lot of classic Disney stuff too, and that's Swamp Fox. And Leslie Nielsen, man, that's I'll definitely have to look that up. Yeah, believe it or not, I don't know what that is, so I'll have to check that out. Thanks for the popping it out there. So yeah. So that's what I got here for tonight. I will be back next week, and I'll be back with some videos in the meantime. But you guys have a great weekend, great week, all of that. Great Father's Day tomorrow. Hope that you have a father still around, a good father worth spending time with around, because obviously, you know, they need to be worth a good father. And hope you have a great Father's Day, and a happy Father's Day to all of you dads or father figures, as I defined earlier. But until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the true blue hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.